I was watching your video the other day when you were talking about relationships. What was really nice, I almost left a comment, is over your right shoulder and back up on the mantle, there was a nice picture of a loving relationship. So
Yeah.
set that up well.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and my sister.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You have questions about relationships?
no more than any questions about anything else.
Yeah.
I'm full of questions. You remember I wrote in the text when you asked about recording this, and I had said something about, some of the more profound teachings happen in silence. But I've been thinking about that, and that may well be the case. But and it kind of struck me as a lot of silence would come out of, I don't even know what to talk about, because everything I would have to ask you or to say is just another flavor of seeking.
Not necessarily. Because yeah, there could just be an interest there too. Like there is interest here in different types of characters and getting to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fun.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's totally fine if the seeking is searching for something or has a question or is interested in something, and because that's totally normal.
Yeah. I figure I'm pretty normal. And probably like a lot of people that come to sit with you is, there's like an intellectual understanding of what's shared. It's a pretty straightforward message. Not that the mind doesn't rebel against it or not understand it or whatever. Yeah, so I am interested in exploring, and that's why I am here.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what to ask, or, there's a part of me that always thinks, oh, if I just had the right question.
Yeah.
But again, that just seems like another example of trying to figure things out, the me trying to understand and make sense of it all and control and all of that. So
Yeah. Have you been a spiritual seeker for a long time? When did you hear this message?
This particular message, I think I ran across a recording of Tony Parsons. Oh, it'd be a few years back. I've been pursuing Advaita Vedanta or non-duality for quite some time, but it started out with Nisargadatta's book, I Am That. And then I spent a lot of time listening, reading about Ramana Maharshi. And I could relate to a point, but I wondered if I was missing something, if there was like a cultural difference that for my Western mind was just hard to penetrate or really be able to sit with some of what I was hearing or reading. And so I started kind of looking around, wondering if there was a Westerner who was, well steeped in that, and came across Rupert Spira, and then spent a lot of time with Rupert, been to a couple of retreats with him.
Okay.
And all through that, and before that, there was many years of Buddhism, and I've always had an interest in the self, the whole concept of self. But even then with Rupert, I just always had this sense, there's always a me sitting here doing something, whether it's meditating or contemplating, or so it's like the mind is just always there. Um, so it was somewhat, it wasn't very satisfying. Um, and when I came across Tony and then Jim Newman, listening to him and just going around and listening, I was really struck by the message. What I was really struck by was the speakers, the people who were sharing, never gave the self anything to hold on to, which was maddening. I'm assuming you've had some similar experience as you came into this.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind keeps seeking, wanting to understand, wanting to somehow find that the key that unlocks it all, and then can find the happiness. And the reason I ended up reaching out to you is because in your first few most of your videos that you share, there's a way I can relate to you, because there's a tenderness you have that I am hearing, I guess, in the way that you talk about past traumas and just what it is to be human.
Mm.
So there's a sensitivity that I perceive there that is it's kind of comforting. It's very relatable for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sitting here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
This character really appreciates the devastation of the person, the beauty and the devastation, and how much suffering that went on here. There's a memory of that, and there is a deep and profound sense that it never really happened, but there's a desire to not neglect that, or not to just dismiss it, even though it's seen as something that never really happened to anyone. But the pain and the suffering is still real and unreal, and it still can continue after the me apparently drops. So I think there's a preference here in this character to still alleviate some suffering and pain if possible. So it has nothing to do with the me sense dropping. It really doesn't. But there's still this, maybe it's conditioning, maybe it's just natural compassion too, where there's interest in addressing that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me right now, I'm kind of coming out of a period of just getting by, surviving life, trying to get through. But now that spring's coming and the sap's running, and the possibility we can go back out in public and hug people and stuff, I'm kind of off on a two-pronged approach. And one is to continue engaging in non-duality, but the other part is to continue some counseling and see. Are you familiar with the concept of spiritual bypassing?
Mm-hmm.
Was that something you considered for yourself?
The thing is, I feel like for this character, she it seemed like she always got to a point of desperation before she looked at the truth of what was going on. So I don't even know if spiritual bypassing is even possible. Like, for sure, the person can really be in denial and put effort in not wanting to see all of that stuff, and constantly distract, and sure, that is possible. But for whatever reason, sometimes there is a desire to stop doing that, or because it produces a lot of pain, it produces like addiction to certain things, and these avoidance tactics that can be very, very painful, because you're just suppressing everything and doing stuff on the surface to distract yourself. So it can produce a lot of pain, and eventually the body can come to a point where it's just like it can't take it anymore. So that's what seemed to happen here most of the time. I mean, maybe toward the end there was a maturing of the character, so then it was easier for her not to be so devastated in order to see that stuff, to want to look at the shadow stuff. So she got into the habit of just looking at it, because the pain was diminishing, and the intense seeking was diminishing, and it became a path,
Okay. The looking at it.
The looking at the shadow.
The shadow, right. Okay.
The so-called unconscious stuff. So it just happened. And I have a sense that it just happens. If someone's avoiding, that's just what's happening. If a desire to stop avoiding arises, then that's just what's happening. No one is in control of that. No one is producing that.
Yeah, there's one of the places where the mind goes, what do you mean there's nobody in control? I've spent my whole life trying to be in control. Or pretending I was. How did you come to this? The character back when it was.
So after many, many months of trauma healing, and solely dedicated to just trauma healing, she was unemployed and dedicated her life to that.
Oh, you had time.
Yeah, I had savings, and I think there was just so much intense suffering that I just couldn't. It was either this or I just couldn't go on. It felt kind of like that. So that happened, and then peace seemed more prevalent, overall peace, but there was still a seeking of some sort, like something was still missing. There was still this sense of, I'm not good enough. I still need to improve. Something's still lacking. And so there was a little bit of seeking still going on. And then, I'm a little addicted to YouTube. So yeah, things popped up. Anna Brown popped up, Nothing Media.
Oh yeah. She's lively.
Yeah. And then going down the rabbit hole of all the speakers, like really all of them, getting a little obsessed with all of them at certain points. And then there was a running away, and I can't run away, so I just listen to it anyways. And then running away, and eventually it just became a little like entertainment. I watched it because it felt pleasurable. The seeking was kind of diminishing, but it was still like, oh, the next live meeting, I'll something will happen.
Next person, yeah.
Yeah. But then the me eventually, it was over and over. It was just like, I can't make it happen. Nothing's gonna happen. This is already the case. Um, yeah. So in a sense, a giving up on enlightenment happened naturally, and
Hmm.
also a continuing with the apparent life seemed to happen, because the most precious goal of this character was enlightenment, and she kind of stopped living for in order to just get enlightened. But that was given up, which was horrible. It felt horrible to let go of that dream, because it was a dream for how many apparent years. And then there was a continuation with life. What else can you do? You can't make this happen. Might as well. This is the thought that was believed in. It was like, might as well just try and enjoy life, because what else are you gonna do?
Sometimes I feel that's what I'm waiting for, is my mind to get exhausted and just give up so we can just get on. But then that's another thought. So
And this so-called mind didn't really, like, it would try really hard, hit a wall, and then maybe give up for a little bit, and then it would start again and then start again. But I would say it never really stopped.
yeah.
It just doesn't, it can't stop on its own, and it can still just linger, even if it's very subtle.
Oh
even
yes.
even when the me sense apparently drops, these thoughts are so habitual that it can just carry on for a little bit.
Well, I think you've alluded to that. I mean, the trigger still. So if you're back in those intimate relationships, a sister, mother, father, triggers are there, and thoughts and body sensations, emotions come about.
Mhm. Yeah,
What's shifted is there's no one doing that,
there's no one owning it.
no one owning it.
So it's purely just frustration, just agitation, just anger, just sadness. And you can say it feels more intense because no one is there feeling it. It's just what it is. But it's not like, it doesn't seem unpleasant. At least for here, it just seems like full on what it is. And there's not that much difference between heartbreak and crying and laughter and joy. There's a preference for laughter and joy for sure, but still it's not that much of a difference. Yeah, it seems.
Mm. And so are those relationships, are they, from the other people's point of view, how's that shifted for them?
From what I can sense, I don't talk about this with my family.
Oh,
My sister knows something kind of happened, but I told her not to watch my YouTube channel.
oh.
And from what I can sense here, it's like maybe they can sense partially a lightness and partially a directness. So there's no more real filter of like, I should be a good daughter. It's very
Mhm.
light. The conditioning is still there,
Mm.
but there's not too much pretending of like, oh yeah, I should do this in order to appear like a good daughter and make her happy, I just say, that's a lot of work for me. I'm not going to do that. There seems to be very little forcing of things. So if the body really doesn't want to do something, there seems to be very little energy to force it to do it anyways. So I would say that's pretty big, especially for this character who tried to pretend like she was okay with doing certain things she really didn't want to do.
Okay. Yeah.
So it can sound perhaps a little dismissive at times compared to how the character was before, but there's also a lightness. Like, I don't say it aggressively, it's just honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you and your relationships?
I'm trying to think of how to word something. I have a sense, or I have memories of, oh, and again, I'm kind of searching for some words. I think I find it more sometimes when I'm being creative. When I lose Tim doing something, I remember building a wooden box for my son-in-law and some other projects where I was just so caught up in the grain patterns in the wood and the colors and the way it was coming together. There was just this experience. There wasn't Tim doing something. And in fact, people would say, "Oh, you do such beautiful work." And I was like, wow, I wasn't even really there doing anything. It was just, there was this, I guess, flow is probably the word that seems to capture it. It was just flowing. And there was a lot of creativity that was available. Where for the lid of this box, for a handle, I was just kind of stuck. I didn't know what was going to really look good with these different types of wood and stuff. And suddenly just this memory shows up. Oh, I've got these deer antlers, which I hadn't seen for like 25, 30 years. They were in a little can off in the corner of the shop. I hadn't seen them forever. And it just showed up. Oh, I'm going to cut one of these. And it had a nice curve to it. And my son-in-law is an elk hunter. He likes to bow hunt, so that there was some antler there. And it was really nice to blend the wood and the antler. And it just showed up, and it was, yeah, that's probably the most alive I've felt in a long time during that period. And then afterwards, this whole kind of amazement when people would say things about the box, it's just like, it just happened. I didn't really make it happen. I was there. I was part of the process. So when that same experience happens in relationships, but if I'm trying to force or protect or whatever, then that doesn't show up in relationships. So.
What's interesting though, there's still protection mechanisms here. There's still defensiveness. There's still what else? All of those things that were really personalized, as if I shouldn't be so defensive, I should be more patient, or so all of that is just conditioning, and it seems to still be here.
Hmm.
There's just no one owning it.
Hmm.
There's even still judgment, like, uh did I do something wrong? But that I is not referring to anything, it's just a thought, and that thought can affect certain whatever said, or like whatever action, or it may not. uh but it's surprisingly very similar. It's just not happening to anyone. No one is owning any of it. It's all chaotically just appearing to happen.
Hmm. So my sense is, I mean, there is this, let's say, manifestation called the human body and the brain and the nervous system. And then, so yes, that conditioning and things are still there. I mean, I'm not putting this well. Maybe it's sometimes when I hear the message, there is no one doing that, it kind of negates the whole thing. Or you are not your body, or I am not my body. And yet there's this body, there's this living being, or apparently that's my experience. And so it makes sense that these patterns that have been laid down and reinforced over time would still happen. So it's clarifying to hear again that separation, that it's not happening to somebody, these emotions or whatever that you speak to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that the bodily desires and needs are still there. So the body still wants to bond, and the body still can feel a little lonely, or um or be a little addicted to something. um so yeah, it's very ordinary, you know. Sometimes when stress arises, anxiety arises, sometimes a little more alcohol is, craved. And then, at least for here, there's a not wanting to be dependent on it. So there's a cutting back of it. But that can
Mm.
happen or not happen. Um, a little addiction to food can still be there. Um, yeah, different preferences, like wanting more silence, not wanting to be around too many people is still there. Yeah.
So then, but so these things arise. This may be a desire for an extra glass of wine or whatever. Um, and I want to say, so what's your experience of that? Again, getting caught up in some languaging. So it's more that you're just aware that that's arising, and watch it pass, like cloud in the sky. Um, what I want to say, what's your experience of it? But then I'm going to hear, but there's not a me. There's not an experience. That's what makes these conversations so challenging for those who are still have our foot nailed to the ground.
It is really also hard to describe here too, because it's kind of like it's just what's happening, and um, you know, like enjoyment can arise, or doubt, like maybe I shouldn't have that glass. And then either it's still enjoyed or it's not.
Mhm.
Um,
Hmm.
so when I describe it, it sounds like a progression. Like
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a thought and then the drinking happened or didn't happen. But like time is seen to be so not real that I mean, you can say it's just playing out that way, but even that seems to not make sense because nothing is played out, nothing is in progression or in time, nothing led to anything else. Um, and the mind cannot comprehend that because this is like this obliterates everything, so it's
Mm-hmm.
completely unknown. um, yeah, it's like nothing full on everything, and it's infinity, just infinity. Things are happening but it's not really happening. It
Yeah,
appears.
those are kind of things that my mind really gets caught up on. This is everything arising from nothing, and my mind just goes crazy. um,
But it's
and
not
I,
even arising from nothing.
uh-huh.
Everything is nothing simultaneously.
Can you say more about that?
So
What is the nothing? I mean, my mind, and I understand it's the mind trying to grasp concepts like infinity. I part of me recognizes the mind can't grasp those kind of things, that it's beyond the mind. But it's still here, me and my mind trying to grasp those concepts.
yeah.
And maybe that's why I'm here, is looking for just hearing it in a different way. I mean, I think there's a hope that I'll hear it some different way where it will suddenly fall in place or whatever.
Yeah. So it seems like without this sense of me, then separation completely falls away. And so then there's no location and no distinction, no difference between
Mm,
any apparent objects. So everything has this, it's not a feeling, it's this, I think it's this unknowing that senses that everything is totally empty, and the solidity of everything, it appears that way, but it's sensed to really be totally empty at the same time. So even when you look at a tree or the walls, um, the solidity for whatever reason is just not there. But it's not a feeling. It's this total like unknowing, um, and it's odd because everything apparently continues, and another body is apparently still seen there,
mm-hmm.
but the solidity is just, there's just evenness to everything and no separation. So then the better or worse, or the higher or lower, and the
Mm-hmm.
like, that can still arise as a thought, but it's so empty. It can have relative meaning, but it's so meaningless too.
This is where my brain wants to give up and just say, Tim, you're not going to understand. It's this apparent awakening thing. this illusion dissolves, then there'll be this experience of nothing. The old Buddha teaching, emptiness is form, form is emptiness.
So the me sense is also this. It's just what's appearing. That too is not separate. It's crazy that this can appear as anything and everything. So it appears as a sense of separation, as an illusory sense of me, but that too is this wholeness.
Mm. Mm. I think sometimes it's just my mind gets caught up in the words, and language is dualistic, and so therefore it's very limited. It appears to be very limited in this. So when you say it, then my question is, well, what's the it? You know, like the it's an it. Yeah, just recognizing the challenges, the limitations of language. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just an attempt to point to an appearance of something called the me sense, which is also the part of the mystery. It's also unknown. It's also this miraculous appearance, but it's totally empty, like everything.
Mm. I've had for years and years, decades, had this sense that what I'm looking for is less than a millionth of a hair width away, but it might as well be on the other side of the universe. So that any attempt to try to turn to it is just turning away from it. So this is good. My mind's trying to give up more.
Even turning away from it is this.
Is what is happening. Yeah.
Apparently. seems that way, but yeah, any attempt to stop seeking or the seeking, yeah, it's already perfection. The frustration and agitation is unconditional perfection.
What do you say to your friends who say, Suzanne, what should I do? How do I understand more of what has apparently happened to you? You must have a circle of friends that are curious. It's an assumption on my part, so apologize if I'm assuming too much.
A lot of the friends have fallen away, but I do have some close friends, very few, but so honestly, I haven't seen them very. The last time I saw them was in December, when it just apparently happened, so I didn't really say anything. There was just an enjoyment to interact,
Hmm.
even in the old way, just, what's going on with your life and how are you? But with one friend, yeah, I didn't even attempt to explain. So I said that I had a YouTube channel, but I said you shouldn't look at it because
It would just make me more curious.
I know, I know. I probably shouldn't have said that, but it just came out that way. So I
Yeah.
actually don't know if she's watched it. She hasn't brought it up. So yeah, I guess I haven't had that conversation yet with
Oh,
others who
okay.
asked me about this from my past. I'm not going to be the one to bring it up. So if they're genuinely interested, then yeah, I'll share, but I'll probably be gentle, just little bits here and there. I don't know how to be gentle with this message though, to be honest. It is so radical that it's so confronting.
Well, and you come across to me as somebody who's just honest about it in all regards, the humanness, the conditioning, this, whatever it is.
Mm,
It's the Suzanne character.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So it might come off pretty brutal. Who knows? There's no predicting how this will be expressed.
Well, then may I ask you then what I know you can't, I mean, the question is what happened? So, and I know you've alluded to having these binging YouTube non-dual marathons and stuff. Um, what else can you share about that or just around that? Oh gosh, words are so useless sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah, you just want to know more about um,
Yeah, I really think it's the mind still just wanting to understand and find some trick or key or whatever.
mhm.
And there's again just interest in this the happening as much as one who's still very much in the sense of me can understand it. Because I guess I'd have to say most of the other stories, like listening to Tony talk about walking across the park or um, any, you know, Ramana Maharshi's what happened to him at 16. It's not like, and it's a great story for the me to listen to, but it doesn't provide anything in terms of a proscriptive. And that's the whole thing. I just come to this where I can't even practice because who's practicing? What is this I'm seeking, wanting to get?
Yeah.
What do you like to share about around that time? You said in December.
Yeah.
Uh, what does this Suzanne character find it's insightful or inspiring or that you would share with other people?
Yeah.
Because you've been doing on your videos, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, for here too, there is an interest in even comparing how it happened to other people. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's an enjoyment in sharing this stuff. So it seemed like there was this natural interest in how different characters express this, and it was so unique. So
Mm.
at, at a certain point, there was a noticing that it wasn't all about the message. Sure, yes, the message resonated so profoundly more than anything, but it was also there was just this genuine interest in the individual characters.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and there was a little bit of a falling in love with in certain moments with different characters, and certain things that were said seem to help this character. I don't know, but like certain things either diminished some beliefs that I didn't know were there, or like calmed the system down, or agitated the system, like fear arose. It triggered different things. There was a lot of comfort in certain speakers. Like I thought Naho was like so gentle, but very, very direct too.
She's
Uh,
sweet. Yeah.
yeah. And I liked Dawn because she talked about the experiences,
Hmm.
which I appreciated. She doesn't really dismiss that. And she addresses the person sometimes. Um, I read Richard Sylvester's book, I Hope You Die Soon, and I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
Um, Tim Kliss also had like a feminine feel to him, which I really liked.
Hmm.
Um, Rose was just, she was very honest about how doubtful she was, which I really liked. That the
Yeah.
doubt just lingered for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and some people, like I think Lubo and Luciana had one meeting where Lubo was talking to someone with a lot of anxiety arising, and it was a little bit advice, I guess. It could be interpreted that way, but it was just more like the body knows what to do. That's just what's arising, and the body will do what it's going to do, and nothing bad will happen. He said something like that.
Hmm.
You know, that was like comforting. um, and there's so many others. I love Jim too. He, in the beginning, Jim was just my go-to. And I love Andreas too. He just seemed like a papa bear.
That's cute.
Yeah. I love Kenneth too. I thought he was pretty just really clear. And I could only listen to Tony at the very end. He was so intimidating, and he wasn't palatable for some reason for this character for a long time.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah.
But then it was beautiful at the end.
Oh, good. I'd love his laugh
Yeah, yeah.
when he does his little.
And I like that he's, he has a little rascal in him too.
Oh, yeah.
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 I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but I really did dive in to a lot of different characters. Um, so something maybe felt satisfied, like this character so enjoyed exploring different characters.
Mhm.
There was just a lot of enjoyment in it, not like an excessive enjoyment. It was just like, yeah, it was like a gentle, this is just what I'm really interested in, and so what.
Yeah.
And often I would go for walks and just listen to this. Sometimes I wouldn't. But there really was a continuing with life. There was a decision made, it seemed, by no one. Like, um, yeah, I have to get my life together in a way. I can't just wait. This feels pretty horrible just to wait, because nothing's gonna happen, and uh I don't want to feel like this. So I do want to enjoy life. And if the sense of me is here for the rest of this apparent life, then that's what it's going to be. So um yeah, I'm just going to try and enjoy it. Um
Mhm.
but there was also, I mean, there was still hope arising, you know.
Hmm.
I would still listen to this stuff, and there was still thoughts like, is this it? Did it happen?
What if
um
I missed it?
yeah, do I have it now? Did I get it?
Maybe.
Did I achieve it? But it was very subtle. The belief in it, it did feel as if like it didn't even matter. It really didn't even matter if it happened or not. So those thoughts came, but like who the fuck cares? It's just gonna happen or it's not. Um yeah, but the other thing is I know a person who never heard this message and the sense of me dropped.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
So it's so unique. It's so it really doesn't have one way that it can
Mm.
happen, and there's no cause to it. It's just this particular character happened to, you know, play out this kind of progression, but it had nothing to do with when or how the me fell away. The me
Hmm.
did not make it happen. We don't know
Right.
why it happens. Um, so it's quite clear that it can happen any different type of way.
Hmm.
And I would maybe also say that um, like spiritual teachings can be a trap, can be another identity, a spiritual identity, and it can still be the me identifying as that. So it is still separation. It is still um, can feel burdensome sometimes, but it can also be very relieving for the person. It can seemingly improve the conditioning. It can alleviate some of the pain and suffering. Um, but what's seen here is that it is more concepts like be more accepting or forgive yourself, or it is more and more concepts like do good now so that your next life will be better, or you know, it's just a lot of concepts. So it's
Yes.
still a pretty heavy uh, trap is not a bad word, it sounds so negative, but you know what I mean. It's just like
Mhm.
another identity.
Right. It has boundaries and yeah. Yep.
So but it's seen here like some of that stuff can still in a way, not so directly, not so believed in, but in a way it's still implemented here. It's still like um an example like if I see someone, so the me sense dropped and this person that I'm talking to is in a lot of pain. So since there is no one here in the body owning the body, life and death is, it can seem a bit equal. It can
Hmm.
seem like it's not that there's not that much of a difference. But for
Hmm.
here, this character is a little more on the joyful side. So there's a preference to live because there is enjoyment in life and certain things. But for him right now, his his conditioning or his prominent, it's not a state. There's just so much suffering, and he would call it suffering, even though there's no person there owning it. There's so much suffering that it would be a little slightly preferred sometimes if the body like just didn't exist. um And so when I see that, then I can see that, oh, it could be a good thing to improve the conditioning, to want to improve in certain ways so that you feel a little more excited about living, but that's just a preference.
Mm.
And so there's this attempt here to like encourage him to express this because it could be fun, perhaps. I don't know. It could be fun to reach out to some people and talk about this. I don't know. But there's some encouragement that happens here
Mm-hmm.
to try and I guess change the conditioning and preferences there. But ultimately, this is going to sound weird for the person, but ultimately it doesn't matter, and it's not in anyone's control to prevent whatever will apparently play out there.
Mm-hmm.
There can still be an attempt. There can still be a real desire here to prefer him to be alive, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it's going to play out the way it plays out.
Yeah.
So sometimes I even say that it's not even necessarily better or worse without the me sense, because the me sense also, let's say if there's a lot of pain and suffering, it can actually minimize how much that is felt, because it acts like a border. It acts like um, a filter. So it's not just the pain. There is this
Yes.
middle person kind of yeah, tracking and controlling a little bit, seemingly, not really, but but again, not to like bring up more fear. I have a sense like it could go either way. Like the conditioning for him could improve, and it could get better. It's possible, but it's also possible that it doesn't change. There's just no knowing. But there is this sense like the body doesn't want to really stay in pain, so certain actions just seem to happen because the body just doesn't want to stay in pain.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. If you need a good friend, just send me a line.
Will do.
No, it's very enjoyable to spend some time with you.
Yeah,
So
me too.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll send you the recording and you can decide if what.
That's good. I'm going to go back over those places where you were sharing something and my mind caught something and then started wandering off and came back and said, oh shit, Tim, you just missed it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and you can let me know if you want it posted or don't want it, or you just want my face. Whatever is fine.
I think for me, it's whatever's going to serve you and what you're up to.
Oh, nice.
I don't have no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on here. I'm just doing, I'm just trying it out, I guess.
Yeah. I think whatever you do, that it's in the way, well, and for me, yeah, it's in the way that you come across that is relatable.
Hmm.
I guess resonating is the word that's used, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, this character can't seem to put on a front. It's just what it is. You know, this is kind of how I would act with my friends or family. I wouldn't talk about this stuff, but like,
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, I think that's when I have looked at a lot of different folks on YouTube, most of the ones that you mentioned as well. And they're all fun to see. What does strike me is that the message seems almost exactly the same. It's like Tony has a little boot camp of radical non-duality, and so everybody comes out. It's part of my mind's like this conspiracy theory part.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
For here too. I was like,
yeah.
am I an adult? What is this?
Well, I think it speaks to what the message being shared is pointing to, for lack of a better word. I really don't think Tony is really putting an army together. And if it is, and this is a cultural revolution based in consciousness and transformation, or whatever word you want to use, I'm all for it, because I don't see a lot of possibilities going on there right now otherwise. So yeah. So,
Nice.
yeah. Thanks.
Okay.